Ayong hapon. Welcome to Ilomoka collaboration with the Art Response Projects. This month, we will be holding live streams in partnership with the Art Response Projects to help creatives in their art practices. These topics were conceived by creative powerhouses Richard Buxani and Riel Hilario. Most of us watching right now are artists and students. Today's topic will focus on taxation for artists. Tax is the lifeblood of the government. This is an important thought we should remember going into this discussion. So, what is the objective of today's discussion? We need creatives and artists to know the basic of taxation, including the taxes that artists need to pay and how to pay them. The talk will be a little bit technical, but stay with us because we will discuss important information as well as provide you with easy to follow guides. I think we are ready to meet our guest. Our guest for today is Attorney Maria Thristle Buxani. Attorney Maria Thristle Buxani has been in the practice of the legal profession for 20 years and served as Assistant Vice President for Tax Advisory for Philinvest, including its subsidiaries and affiliates. She conducts regular seminars for various companies on changes in tax laws as well as on audit compliance. She also previously served as the General Counsel for Huawei Technologies Philippines Incorporated, a major international telecommunications company whose duties included legal representation during major contract negotiations, compliance and risk management, and administering the legal department for the Philippine office. So, Attorney Buxani, welcome to the show.
Hello, good afternoon. Thank you very much for that introduction. So without further ado, let me start with the topic. So basically, the topic that we will be discussing this afternoon is the very basics of income taxation for artists. When we talk about taxation here, we will deal specifically for individuals because taxation for corporations, for foundations, and other types of juridical entities will take a different perspective as well as different tax treatments. So we are only focusing our discussion on income taxation for artists. Okay, so the discussion this afternoon will be centered on several topics. What is taxation? What is a tax identification number? Where do I register? How do I pay my taxes? And how do I file my return? Okay, so to give you a brief introduction on what is taxation, I think the beginning of the presentation, you were told that taxation is the lifeblood of the government. This means that yung funds that are necessary for the government to function come from the taxes of being paid by individuals and corporations. It is a process of raising revenue. That is why the government keeps on encouraging people to pay their taxes. It is used to defray the expenses of government. So yung mga pansweldo ng tao sa gobyerno would come from taxes. The others are basically fees. And the taxes which are being collected are used to pay for most of the expenses of the government. So the higher the taxes collected, the more budget that goes to the government in order to pay for infrastructure and for all other development expenses. There are three major agencies of the government that collect taxes. Primary and most famous of them all is the Bureau of Internal Revenue, or the BIR. They are in charge of collecting internal revenue taxes. And then we have the Bureau of Customs, which deal primarily with customs and duties. That means for importation of goods are administered by the Bureau of Customs. And then we have for the local government, the city treasurer or assessor, who collects taxes for businesses and for real property taxes. Okay. What taxes do I pay? Okay. There are basically several taxes that we need to pay. principally, we need to pay income tax. When we talk about income tax, it means income earned for any activity. So basta kumita ka, you will have to pay income tax. And then if you do activities such as sales, you are required to pay a sales tax or a value-added tax or a percentage tax. Then for every document that is required to be executed, you pay a documentary stamp tax. And for rights and privileges, you pay royalties. And then you have royalty taxes. The taxable activities that basically are subject of taxation are salary, which is yung compensation, yung sweldo na ang nagbabayad ay mga empleyado na tinatanggal every time that they pay the tax. It is withheld by the company and remitted by the company to the BAR. For the exercise of a profession, like for example, a doctor or lawyer, for the exercise of the profession, in the event of income earned from the exercise of a profession, you are required to pay income tax for that exercise of a profession. And if you are not a professional, then in the aspect of engaging in business, you are required to pay taxes. Every time you buy goods or services, there are also taxes being collected for those types of activities. I understand that a lot of the activities right now are online activities. So while the activity is online, there is always an activity which deals with paying and in the aspect of selling services or goods. And for that, it is also subject to income tax. How do I pay my taxes? There are two methods by which taxes are paid. Yung pinakamadali is yung tinatawag na direct remittance. Direct remittance is made by filing and paying your income tax to the BIR through an authorized agent bank. So hindi naman BIR mismo ang tumatanggap ng bayad mo ng tax. You pay through the bank, through the bank account number of the BIR, who in turn will remit that tax to the Bureau of Internal Revenue. You pay that with the authorized agent bank of the Revenue District Office where you are registered and where you are required to pay. Another method of paying tax is through indirect remittance. When we say indirect remittance, hindi ko mismo nagbabayad. Bago pa ibayad sa'yo, tinatanggal na. O in which way, yung nagtanggal nung tax, siya yung magbabayad sa gobyerno. An example for this is in the terms of salaries. When an employer pays the salary of their employee, once you receive your salary, it's already net of taxes. So the withholding agent here is the company, and the company in turn will pay the taxes to the government. Okay. And another example is when, for example, a gallery will pay the fees of the artist. Every time they pay the fees of the artist, there is a percentage of about 5 to 10%, which is taken from the artist fee, and that is paid by the gallery to the government. So each time that your taxes are withheld from whatever compensation that you receive, that is considered a tax credit. So pag nabawasan ka ng tax, yung tax na binawas na sa'yo can be used to pay your tax liability. And that tax payment is evidenced by a BAR Tax Credit Certificate or BAR Form 2307. Now we have to deal with the tax identification number. I assume most of you already have your tax identification number. But for those who are not familiar, a tax identification is a unique identification number assigned to a taxpayer upon presentation and application with a BIR. So, isang beses lang siya ina-apply and you cannot change it, but your information can be updated but the number given to you cannot be applied again. So, unless you, of course, die, and then your estate will be the one who will apply for a new tax identification number. The tax identification number contains information such as your complete name, your address, your date of birth, and other personal information. A tax identification number is obtained prior to employment or before engaging in gainful profession or business. So hindi siya basta-bastang nakukuha kung wala kang kumpletong dokumento. As I said, it is a permanent number. It is a criminal violation to apply for more than one PIN. There is a fine of 1,000 pesos or imprisonment of not more than 6 months if you apply for more than one tax identification number. I'll show you a sample of the current tax identification number card issued by the BIR. Okay. If you look at the tin, it is printed in security paper. So papel lang siya. Before, the BIR used to issue a card, but due to budget constraints, it's no longer issuing tax identification cards. So ang ibibigay sa'yo ng BIR is yung card, tapos ididikit mo na lang yung picture mo at ikaw na magpapalaminate. Okay. So if you look at the card, you will have to check that the information indicated in your tin is correct. So in order for you to get a tax identification number, you will have to be either a self-employed professional or a person engaged in business, in which case you will be required to fill up your form BIR 1901. And for employees, you will have to fill out your form through your employer, and then you will get a written endorsement from your employer. Currently, they will request for certain documents to establish your identity. The documents that are required are indicated, such as a birth certificate, your passport, or driver's license. So it's easier to get a tax identification number when you have your endorsement from your employer. Okay, the tax identification is not a business registration. So pag nakakuha ka ng PIN, while you are already able to pay your taxes just by applying for a tax identification number, it is not really a business registration. Okay, how do you register your business? Okay, for a professional, you just need to present your professional license. If you are not a professional, meaning you don't have the license from the Philippine Regulatory Commission or through the Integrated Bar of the Philippines, you will need to register your business with the Department of Trade and Industry. Okay, for the Department of Trade and Industry, their services are currently online. It is available already and it's very easy to register. Even payment is done online, and your business name is protected once you register with the Department of Trade and Industry. The DTI registration, you can register your name. For example, if you're an artist, you want to use your name, then you can register your name as your business. Or if you want to use a trade name, you can actually register your trade name. They will register your trade name, and your trade name is already protected by the mere fact of registration. Okay, so nobody else is allowed to use your name once it's registered in the Department of Trade and Industry. Okay. Another registration that you will be required to make is with the mayor's office. Kasi for the jurisdiction where you will be doing business, the mayor's office will regulate all businesses transacted within the locality. So kahit naka-register ka na with the DTI, hindi ka pa rin completely registered if you do not get a mayor's permit. So a mayor's permit is obtained from the mayor's office, and you will need to pay permit fees. And then afterwards, you will also need to pay income for the businesses, which is different from the taxes paid with the Bureau of Internal Revenue. So dito, hindi na natin i-discuss yung business tax na binabayaran sa mayor's office. Ang binabayaran nyo sa mayor's office is also a tax, but it is a business tax and it is not an income tax. Ang difference ng dalawa is sa mayor's permit, kahit wala kang kita, basta meron kang transaction, you will need to pay a business tax. Sa Bureau of Internal Revenue, kung wala kang kita or wala kang income, there is a possibility that you have no income tax which you need to pay. Okay, so the third one that you are required to register is with the Bureau of Internal Revenue. Once you have the documents from 1 and 2, which is from the DTI and the Mayor's Office, you now proceed with the Bureau of Internal Revenue. Currently, because of the onset of online businesses, and in order to encourage businesses from registering, they have waived the registration of 1 and 2 in order for you to apply with BIR. That does not mean that you don't need to do 1 and 2, meaning you still need to register with the DTI in the Mayor's Office. But right now, you can go to the BIR directly and to register your business even if you don't have 1 and 2. Okay. When you go to the BIR, and once you are registered with the BIR, you will be issued a certificate of registration. So yung certificate of registration na yun yung proof na registered ka na with the BIR. Okay. Ang business registration for self-employed professionals or engaged in business is BIR Form 1901. May binabayaran ka na registration fee of 500 pesos, and then you will be allowed to issue receipts by getting an authority to print. So pagpunta mo ng BIR, yung resibo, kailangan makakuha ka pa ng authority to print so that you can actually start printing your official receipts. Ang official receipts, hindi piniprint kung kani-kanino lang na printer. BIR has a list of registered printers, and there is a prescribed template for the issuance of the printed official receipts. So hindi pwedeng yung binibili lang sa Recto or sa National Bookstore na resibo. It has to be registered with the Bureau of Internal Revenue because the numbers as well as the printing permit are indicated in your official receipts. Once you are registered also, you will be required to have your books of accounts. Now, I know this is quite daunting, but registration of the books of accounts is part of engaging in business. Okay. Currently, as I said earlier, the BIR has dispensed with the requirement of a mayor's permit. It streamlines the process of registration. Before kasi kaya nahihirapang mag-register ng business sa BIR ang mga negosyante, it's because there are so many requirements being asked by the BIR. So ang pagkuha pa rin ng mayor's permit, medyo mahirap rin. At ang pagkuha ng DTI before was so tedious that people are discouraged from applying with the Bureau of Internal Revenue. So they have streamlined it currently. So those for businesses which are especially doing online businesses, you are only required to register and to present by using your identification, your government identification numbers. That will be enough for the BIR to accept your registration. The next slide, I will give you a brief introduction on how to fill up the forms that you will need to do once you apply for a certificate of registration. Okay. So, pag pumunta kayo sa BIR, www.bir.gov.ph, you will be able to download the application for registration. Now, yung application for registration, meron rin siyang frequently asked questions. So, it will guide you on how to register your business. Basically, BIR Form 1901 consists of 3 pages. If you look at the form, I've already indicated my suggestions on how to fill up the form for an artist. Okay. BIR Form 1901 will require you to indicate, of course, your tax identification number. Kasi single proprietorship ka lang, so dapat meron ka ng tax identification number before you apply for the business. So if you still do not have your tax identification number, the BIR will issue the tax identification once you issue your application for registration. So pag may TIN ka na, gagamitin mo na yung TIN mo. Pero kung wala kang TIN, sabay na yan, i-apply mo siya during the registration of your business. So for a professional, for an artist, you can choose a professional in general because there is a distinction between a professional in general as to a professional who is licensed by the Philippine Regulatory Commission. Okay. So pag professional ka, basically, ang earnings mo is for services and you are not engaging in other types of businesses. While you can do other businesses also, so kung may iba kang negosyo, you are allowed to register that business also under one application for registration. Okay. And then you will also be asked if you are you can have the option to pay under an 8% graduated income. I will discuss that later. But in the application form or 1901, you will have to indicate the type of tax that you want to register with if you are availing of the 8%, which is a flat rate whether or not you earn you have net earnings from your income. That is the tax that you will be required to pay. So for BIR 1901, be very careful in filling up your information, because every time you change your information, you will have to apply for an update of your registration. Okay, so next. As I mentioned earlier, these are the basic registration guidelines for applying for a certificate of registration. Okay. In general, the registration updates are done with the Revenue District Office having jurisdiction over the place where the head office is located or over the place of residence of the individual taxpayer. Now, normally, ang Revenue District Office mo or RDO is where you are doing your business. So kung bahay siya, hahanapin mo kung saang RDO yung bahay mo. The BIR has a list of the Revenue District Office, and you will need to check saan kang BIR na dapat mag-register. Kung meron ka ng TIN, you will need to transfer basically your RDO kung saan ka dati into that new place of registration in order for you to consolidate your income tax. So for persons doing business online with no TIN yet, you register your business following the existing policy securing TIN and registration of business, as I have previously discussed. Persons doing business online who already have the TIN, but the TIN business is not yet registered, so you will need to present the following requirements as follows. As I mentioned earlier, yung BIR registration form or BIR form 1901. So that one can be downloaded from the BIR website. Presentation of government ID that is readable and untampered. Okay. So for example nga, birth certificate, your passport, your driver's license, other documents required. If you are going to use a trade name, you will need to present a BTI certificate. If you are not going to use a trade name, then you do not need to present the DTI. Next is the payment of the new business registration of 500 pesos, yung annual registration fee, and yung documentary stamp tax na 30 pesos na ididikit doon sa certificate of registration ninyo. Then once you have that, you will be issued a BIR printed receipts. Now, the BIR receipts will depend on how many booklets you want printed. So makikipag-usap ko doon sa printer mo kung how many booklets you want to have printed. Kung hindi ka naman masyadong active, pwede na siyang 5 lang na booklets, which is basically 50 sheets per booklet. But please take note that the receipts have a validity of normally 5 years. So after that, you will have to apply for a new receipt. I will show you a sample of a certificate of registration. Okay. So pag na-issue ka na ng BIR, ng certificate of registration, it will look like this. Okay. So it is printed on a security paper issued by the Bureau of Internal Revenue. It will indicate your name and when you were registered, and it will also indicate your tax type. Here, it indicates that the tax type is income tax, and then the registration fee. Yung registration fee kasi every year you have to pay a 500 pesos registration fee. Now, if you do not avail of the 8% na fixed rate, you will have to pay an additional 3% na percentage tax. Okay? And then the certificate of registration also indicates the trade name if you registered with the Department of Trade and Industry, the type of business name that you will use. So yung business name mo na yon na ni-register with DTI is the one which will be indicated in your receipts. So doon malalagay kung ano yung business type na nilalagay mo. The next one will be the line of business or industry. So pipili ka. Normally for artists, you have a specific identification as artists. So yung activity mo can be artist. If you are selling other products, you can indicate that as an additional business. So pwedeng hindi isang business lang yung i-register mo if you are engaged in other activities. Okay. Where do I register? Okay. Briefly, I mentioned that the registration of the business has to be with the BIR Revenue District Office where the artist resides or his place of business. Pwede kasing hindi magkapareho niyan. If you have a branch dahil hindi lang isa yung place of business mo, then you will have to indicate that you have a branch office, and then for that branch office, you will also need to register that one. For employees, it is normally with the BIR RDO of the place of business where the employer is located. So sumusunod siya sa RDO ng employer. The list of BIR RDOs is indicated in www.bir.gov.ph. Okay. Now, we go to the business of how do I pay my taxes. Yung payment ng taxes kasi does not automatically mean na tax payable ka. You will need to make a computation of your taxes and determine whether or not you are required to pay your taxes. But how do you actually do that? The filing and payment of taxes can now be done at the comfort of your home. It can be filled out offline and then filed via internet. After you have filed your income tax returns, you will get an email confirmation that your tax return has been filed. For that email confirmation, please take note that you will need to save that or to print a copy of that as well as the tax return that you filed so that you will be able to have proof that you have filed and paid your taxes. If there is a tax due, payment can be done through either of the authorized agent bank, pwede rin siya ng GCash, and I see that they are also allowed to pay your taxes through credit card. Pag nakita niyo yung line ng BIR, there are facilities open now so that you don't need to actually physically go to the bank and pay your taxes. Okay. When are my taxes required to be paid and when do I need to file my income tax return? Okay. Unfortunately, hindi siya one time. Ang income tax return has to be done quarterly. The first quarter is on May 15, that's yesterday. Second quarter is on the 15th of August. Third quarter is on the 15th of November. And then you have to file your income tax return on the 15th of April. So that's every year, that's the deadline for your income tax return. Okay. Now, if you go to bir.gov.ph, you will see this illustration, and then you will have to download the EBIR forms. So you need to have I think that there are certain system requirements for you to be able to download it. You'll need to download EBIR forms, package 7.9 from www.bir.gov.ph. Okay, so if you look at the illustration in the PowerPoint, there is a link there, and then you just click the link, and then you will be directed to downloading the offline EBIR forms. It is offline kasi hindi mo siya kailangan na may internet ka when you're filling it up. You are only required to have internet connection pag magpa-file ka na ng iyong income tax return. Okay. So, in that same EBIR form, you will be required to fill in your profile. Okay. Once you fill in that profile, every time you file your income tax return, it will be automatic. You just need to remember your tax identification number, and all of your other information will already be reflected in that profile. So, nakasave na siya on that laptop. So, kung magpapalit ka ng laptop, wala na doon yung information niya. So if you're using one laptop, all the information will already be saved in that software and on that site. Okay. In filling up the profile information, you will be required to file your to indicate your tax identification number. So dapat meron ka na munang tax identification number before you can file your income tax return. Then you will also be required to indicate your RDO number. So yung RDO number, naka-indicate rin yun nung nag-apply ka ng TIN. So yung TIN na yun, kung di mo alam yung RDO mo, you can actually do a TIN validation. BIR also has an app, the BIR verifier. You can download the app and then you can check your RDO number by using that app. Okay. Then the line of business will be indicated as, for example, you do the professional, and then you indicate your name, your registered address, the zip number, the telephone number, email address, and then you will click the type of form that you are going to use. Okay. Now, in this slide, I will show you how you will file your income tax return. Okay. Once you have already clicked the BIR forms, if you are going to file your quarterly income tax return, then you will have to choose the form. For quarterly tax return, you will have to choose 1701Q version 2018, and then you can file and pay now your quarterly income tax return. Okay. Now, filling up the return. The return is basically indicates the information that you have filled in your profile. So some of it will be copied in your quarterly income tax return. That means you don't need to indicate it because it's in the profile already. So in your profile, you will have to choose for the tax year. You have to put the tax year. For example, for this year, 2021, you will indicate for the year 2021. And for example, you're going to file for the first quarter. You choose first quarter. And if it's the first time that you're going to file the return, then you will say that it is not an amended return. And then you go towards choosing the type of tax that you are going to pay. In line 8, there are several choices that you can choose in paying your income tax. Business income, graduated income tax rate. Business income, 8% income tax rate. Income from professional or graduated income tax rate. Income from profession, 8% income tax rate. Mixed income, graduated income tax rate. And mixed income, 8% income tax rate. If you are an artist as well as an employee, then you will belong under the mixed income graduated IT rate. So for that portion, you will have to indicate whatever income was earned from your employment and then add it to whatever income you earn as an artist. Okay. The income tax rate in line 16, graduated rates are, there is a tax table on the graduated tax rate and there is a fixed rate of 8%. So yung 8% na yan is fixed at 8% of your gross sales. So wala na siyang deductions for any expenses. 16A indicates your method of deduction, meaning itemized deduction or optional standard deduction. Okay. I know this is becoming very complicated already. Fortunately, for the choices that you put in the tax return, it automatically computes already once you click a choice. Ang magiging difference lang is if you choose itemized deduction. Ang itemized deduction, yun yung gastos ninyo whenever you're earning any income. Yung optional standard deduction is a fixed multiplier of 40%. So, ibig sabihin nun, kung ang kita mo is 100,000, ang allowed ka lang na isubtract doon pag optional standard deduction is 40%. So, ang kita mo from 100,000 na sales, for example, is 60,000 net income. Kasi 40% nun, pinipresume ng gobyerno, gastos. Kung mas malaki pa yung totoong gastos mo kaysa doon sa optional standard deduction, that's the time that you actually choose itemized deduction. Kung halimbawa, ang kita mo from the 100,000 is only about 10,000, then you should choose itemized deduction. However, hindi kasi basta-basta tinatanggap ng BIR ang itemized deduction. It means that you should be able to support the itemized deduction with official receipts to prove na totoong nagastos mo yung expenses na yun. Okay. To simplify your taxes, where your gross sales is less than 3 million per year, you choose the 8% gross sales. Okay, the formula is gross sales minus 250,000 equals the taxable sales times 8%, and that is the total tax due. As I said, the option should be made on the first quarterly return, and the option is non-revocable during the tax year. The benefit of using the 8% is that you are not already required to file a separate percentage tax, which is 3% per month of gross sales. Ang downside lang ng using the 8% is that you are always in a tax payable position. So, lagi ka may babayarang 8%. Okay. Ito yung comparative ng quarterly 1701Q tsaka 1701A. Halos pareho lang yung information, pero yung isa kasi is consolidated. That means you will have to total your quarterly income tax return to come up with your annual income tax return. Okay. In the computation of your tax due, the BIR provides a table. Sales revenue, receipts, or fees. Ano ibig sabihin nun? So, ibig sabihin nun, lahat ng kita mo will be indicated in line 38. So, for example, for the quarter, January, February, and March, you have total sales of, let's say, 150,000. So, you indicate 150,000. And then, may less cost of sales. So, ibig sabihin yan, kung meron kang returns or meron kang balik na benta, you subtract that. And then, you either choose an itemized deduction or a optional standard deduction, as I mentioned earlier. Okay. Optional standard deduction is 40% of the gross sales. Yung gross sales na sinasabi natin dito includes any sales generated whether onshore or offshore, meaning kahit ang kliyente mo ay sa Pilipinas o outside of the Philippines, all sales generated by the seller will be indicated in your sales or revenue or receipts. Okay. If you don't want to choose that option of optional standard deduction, you can choose 8%. So in my illustration earlier, kung 150,000 yung kita mo, pwedeng 150,000 times 8%, so yun na yung tax mo, or 150,000 minus 40% of that 150,000, tapos pupunta ka ng graduated income tax return. Okay. So ito rin yung comparative ng quarterly mo tsaka annual mo. So it's basically comprises of the same information, but the difference is the other one is consolidated. O so pinagsama-sama siya ng 4 quarters mo. Okay. Ito yung tax rate if you use the graduated income tax rate. Okay. This is the difference between the earlier 8% tax and this is based on a graduated income. So ang income tax mo is yung net income, hindi yung gross sales mo if you use the graduated income tax. In my earlier example, for example, the 150,000 you multiply by 4 quarters, then you will have your annual income tax return. Okay, but you subtract the 40% there, and then the net of that will be the one which is called the taxable income. So here, pag ang kita mo for the entire year is not over 250,000, wala kang tax na babayaran. Pag ang kita mo is over 250,000, but not over 400,000, ang tax na babayaran mo is 20% of the excess over 250,000. So if your income has reached 400,000 but not over 800,000, your tax will be 30%, 30,000 plus 25% of the excess over 400,000. If it's over 800,000 but not over 2 million, your tax is 130,000 plus 30% of the excess over 800,000. If your income is over 2 million but not over 8 million, the tax is 490,000 plus 32% of the excess over 2 million. And then if it's over 8 million but not over it's over 8 million, the tax is 410,000 plus 35% of the excess over 8 million. So siya na yung pinakamataas na tax rate. Okay. Ito naman, automatic na to pag na-input mo na yung information mo sa BIR. So you don't need to do it manually. The BIR forms now are designed in such a way as that the complete information will already indicate the tax due. So hindi na kayo kailangan mag-compute kung magkano yung babayaran ninyo, but the tax will already be indicated in the form which was filled up by you. Okay. We go now to tax credits. Tax credits are deductions from your income tax due. So, kailan ka merong tax credit? Ang tax credit ay nangyayari pag merong nang nagbayad ng tax. Pagkatapos nun, yung tax na yun, pwede mong gagamitin pang bawas doon sa due na tax mo. In a transaction wherein you deal with a corporation, for example, and that corporation pays for the commission of an artist. Let's say the company will pay the artist 100,000, and then babawasan niya siya ng 10% kasi yung company is required to make withholding. For the 10% that was deducted from the artist, the 10% is already a credit in favor of the artist. So kung yung artist na yon, yun lang ang kita niya for the year, let's say, and 10% na kagad yung tinanggal sa kanya, if he opted for the 8% gross sales, technically overpaid na kagad siya ng tax kasi nagbayad na siya ng 10%, tapos nun, ang winidold sa kanya ng gallery is already, o ng company is already 10%. Okay. This is what the creditable tax certificate looks like. This is BIR Form 2307. The BIR Form 2307 is issued by the withholding agent or payor. Para saan siya? This is proof na nabawasan ka at ibinayad ng nagbawas yung tax sa gobyerno. Pag wala kang ganitong certificate, wala kang proof na nagbayad yung withholding agent mo sa gobyerno. So this certificate is issued once the withholding agent has already deducted from your taxes. So ito yung ginagamit mo na pambayad naman in turn of your income tax. Okay. So here, it indicates saan mo siya ilalagay. When there is a tax due payable, you indicate that there is a total tax credit or payment in the less. So 20, let's say may tax due ka. You indicate 21 less tax credits or payment. So ibig sabihin, yung 2307 na inisyu sa inyo, ilalagay mo kung magkano na yung nabawas na tax sa iyo, ilalagay mo dyan, at yon ibabawas doon sa total tax due mo. After that, posible na wala ka ng babayarang tax. Pag wala ka ng babayarang tax, you just need to file the return and then keep the return as proof na nag-pay ka ng income tax return mo. Okay, I think that's the end of my presentation.
Thank you, Attorney. I personally learned a lot from the presentation, especially the part where you can actually download a BIR app. So that's also new to me, and that's very helpful. We will now read the questions from our audience. So the first question here, Attorney, is when should an artist start paying taxes? Let's say you only do commissions and you're only doing it as additional income. Like, do they still need to pay taxes?
As a general rule kasi, every year you have to file your income tax return, whether or not there is income earned. So let's say, di ba, nag-start ka ng 2021 as an illustration. As an artist, for example, wala kang kinita from January, February, March. Diba? Let's say, yung sinasabi mo nga, kumita lang ako, let's say this month. Diba? Or May na. Diba? So, yung January, February, March, magpa-file ka pero zero lang. Okay? So, yung susunod na period, pwedeng may kita ka nga. So, for the next quarter, you will indicate that you earned something. So, yung una nating quarter, January, February, March. So, nag-file ka nung May 15. Pag-file mo ng May 15, wala ka kamong kita. Diba? So, magpa-file ka lang, zero ilalagay mo, wala kang revenue, wala ka rin tax due. Okay. April, May, June, kumita ka once lang. Diba? So, magpa-file ka. Pag-file mo nun, magko-compute siya kung may tax due ka na. Kasi i-add yung first quarter mo at second quarter mo, kung zero yung first quarter mo, second quarter mo, let's say, ang kinita mo is 100,000. Diba? Yun na, pinakamadali kasi mag-multiply 100,000 eh. Okay. Sa 100,000, isusubtract natin, let's say yung 40% na optional standard deduction. Kasi hindi ka naman pwede magnegosyo, wala kang gastos, di ba? So, 100,000, babawasan mo ng 40%, which is 40,000. Ang kita mo for the quarter is 60,000. Sa illustration ko kanina, pag ang kita mo for the year is 250,000 lang, zero yung tax due mo. So, magpa-file ka ng second quarterly tax return mo, indicate mo yung ano mo, na ang kita mo for the quarter is 60,000 lang, tapos no tax due ka. So, you still need to file the return kahit zero. Kasi, let's say mag-a-abroad ka, di ba? Let's say, kukuha ka ng, in-invite ka, for example, as a resident artist in another country or you're asked to exhibit in another country. Kailangan mo mag-apply ng visa. Diba normally ang hinahanap nila income tax return? Okay. Eh kung wala kang pinafile, ano ipe-present mo? Diba? So it doesn't mean naman na kumita ka, eh doon ka lang magpa-file ng return. Mandated siya whether or not kumita ka. Kahit zero siya, kailangan mo siyang gawin every year. So every April 15, dapat meron kang annual income tax return. Hindi siya kung kailan lang meron. Ginagawa siya as a regular part of doing business. So the same way na nagre-renew ka ng lisensya or nagre-renew ka, di ba, pag ang passport mo may expiration. Ang lisensya mo may expiration. Ang income tax return, ang problema mo dyan, annual siya. So every year dapat mo siya ginagawa. Ang business permit ng isang artist, for example, annual rin yan. So every January, whether or not meron kang kita, pero as long as you are doing business as an artist, you're required to register with the mayor's office every January 20. Para, regulated ka ng gobyerno. The same with the BIR. You have to do it whether or not meron kang kita. Gagawin mo siyang practice, tapos ipa-file mo siya. Tapos nun, every time na gagawin mo siya, i-declare mo lang kung ano yung kinita mo nga for the period. Hindi naman porket wala kang kinita, hindi ka magpa-file. So lahat tayo dapat ginagawa yan. So you have to remember the deadlines and then file the return accordingly.
Ayun po. In relation to that, attorney, no, is there a benefit to having just a TIN versus the certificate of registration?
Pag wala kang certificate of registration, wala kang resibo. Hindi ka makakakuha ng resibo kung wala kang certificate of registration. So yung sinasabi ko nga kanina, ang TIN is just your ID. It just registers you as a taxpayer of the Philippines. ID lang siya. Hindi siya ibig sabihin na registered yung negosyo mo. Being an artist, ano siya eh, negosyo talaga siya eh. Kahit na sinasabi mo, while art is not a business, as long as you're earning, it's considered as a business and you're rendering services, di ba? Meron kang accountability eh. Whether or not you like it or not, as long, kahit naman ang mga non-stock non-profit, yung mga organizations, they file their income tax return. So kahit yung mga religious organization, mga misyonaryo, nagpa-file rin sila kahit na hindi siya kita. Ang ano siya is yung filing ng return is being done by all citizens of the Philippines regardless of any income earned. Pati yung mga non-stock non-profit nga, pati nga mga associations, as long as you're registered, you are required to file that return whether or not you earn income. So yun nga, pag hindi ka nag-register, may tin nga yung artist. Pero later on, pag sikat ka na, medyo delikado na yan kasi hahanapan ka ng resibo ng mga kliyente mo, especially if you're doing commissions for corporations, mahigpit ang kumpanya. If you're doing business with the government, lalo na. If you do, let's say, businesses with government, require ka nila talaga na meron kang registration eh. And most big companies, if you're doing big commissions, they will ask you to have that business permit as well as with the certificate of registration. Pag that's small, risky siya, pero hindi kasing risky ng malaki ka, di ba?
Yun po, normally, some clients would ask for receipts, no? That's why it's important, then attorney, no, na to have the certificate of registration so that you can print your own receipt.
Yes. Yung printing nga is done by an authorized BAR printer. Remember also that somebody can file a complaint that you earned something and you did not issue a receipt. Yung sinasabi nila na may kita sa resibo, yun ang ng BIR kasi may raffle silang ganyan eh. If somebody reports that you are collecting money, which is more than 150 pesos, you are required already to issue a receipt. So somebody can actually file a complaint against you for failure to issue a receipt. Failure to issue a receipt has a penalty about 10,000 pesos for the first offense. 50 pesos lang yung kinolekta mo, di ba? Tapos ang kakasuhan ka for 10,000 pesos. Yun yung difference niyan. Pag may nagsabi, asan yung resibo ko? Tapos sabi mo, wala akong resibo. Paano pag kinasuhan kita for failure to issue a receipt?
Ayan, so, take note of that.
Pag may tin ka, yung acknowledgement receipt is not a receipt. It is a mere acknowledgement of payment, but it is not considered a valid receipt. So, pwede ka nang kasuhan doon. So, yun yung medyo delikado doon pag wala kang certificate of registration.
Ayun, take note of that, artists. No, a lot of artists actually are asking about this, attorney. That's why it's really good that we're talking about this now. Another question here. This one naman says, this is very interesting topic. Thank you. If you can kindly touch on selling online via Etsy or Zazzle. If the painting is sold through these platforms, is there a need to pay for tax here in the Philippines while items are bought by someone living abroad?
Okay.
If yes,
ang taxability kasi is on the person who is earning the income. Okay. So in your example, the person selling is Filipino. Okay. And he is that Filipino is selling a product through an online platform. Whether Lazada, Shopee, di ba? Parang ganon. Ginagamit mo lang yung platform. But the one selling is the artist, for example. Okay. If your buyer is outside of the country, expense yung sa kanila sa your income. Okay? So on the part of the party earning the income, the tax is on that income earner. So magbabayad ka pa rin ng tax kasi kumita ka. Hindi naman tinatanong dyan kung sino bumili. Ang tinatanong dyan, kumita ka ba? So ganun ang perspective ng income tax. Kumita ka ba? Whether or not, ang taxation kasi is legal or illegal is subject to tax. Yun ang kaya nga pwede kang, si Al Capone nun na sa tax di ba? Whether legal or illegal, basta kumita ka, subject to tax yan. Normally, hindi naman itatanong ng BIR kung saan mo kinita yan eh. Ang tinatanong lang dyan, kumita ka ba? So kung kumita ka, dapat magbayad ka ng tax. Kung
yun,
hindi naman kalakihan yan, pwede naman nga wala kang babayaran tax, di ba? Pero
yun yung basic principle of it, no, attorney. If you earned, if that's an income, you have to pay for that. Yun, remember that. In relation to the previous question, attorney, somebody asked kasi, I think this person has been doing stocks online, so she's asking if tax for foreign resource persons, no, especially sa event online, do we process tax for this as well, and how po if needed?
Okay. Ang ano mo kasi dyan, quandary kasi dyan, is if you're an institution and you're paying for a resource speaker, on the perspective of the institution, it's an expense. Okay. So kung ang expense siya, ang rule dyan is you should be able to provide support for your expense. So kung bumayad ako sa resource speaker, dapat i-prove ko na binayaran ko siya. So kung binayaran ko siya, dapat may resibo. 'Di ba? Kung walang resibo, foreign siya, 'di ba? Ang hahanapin ng BAR dyan is nag-withhold ka ba ng final withholding tax. It's a matter of proving kasi the expense. So if you are not going to pay for the taxes of that foreign speaker, then there's a possibility that the BAR will disallow your expense claim. Ipo-prove mo pa kasi yan na non-taxable yung foreign speaker mo . So mas mahirap yon. Kasi sasabihin, sige, kung bumayad ka sa foreign speaker na yan, nasaan ang inyong kontrata? Asaan ang registration ng foreign mo? Yun lahat yun, hahanapin nyo ng BIR para ma-prove lang na non-taxable yung counterpart na binayaran mo. Yun yung problema. Ayun. Oo. Kasi siya yung gumastos, di ba? Oo. Isusubtract na kasi sa kita niya yun . So that's why in the example that I earlier illustrated, ang sinasuggest ko sa mga artists is to use the 8%. Kasi pag 8%, wala nang tanong-tanong yun kasi tinax ka na doon sa 8%, di ba? So pag ganun, hindi na tatanungin kung ano yung mga pinagbabawas mo doon sa income tax mo.
Pag for example, attorney, if you are, say, commissioned by a corporation, tapos automatic ba deducted yun if withholding 8% or 10% or?
Pag pinakita mo doon sa corporation na merong kang certificate of registration na ang option na choose mo is 8%, then the company is required to withhold 8% only. Pag wala kang certificate of registration na 8% ang tax mo, ang i-withhold sa'yo ay 10%. Kasi may 5% na mababa, pero you have to file an affidavit with the BAR that your income is less than 3 million per year. If you don't file or you don't issue a certificate to that corporation na ang kita mo is less than 3 million, 10% i-withhold sa'yo. So over withholding talaga yon. Pero kasi kung ako yung kumpanya, ang higpit kasi ng 5%. So for the safety ng company, the company will always opt to withhold the higher tax. Kaya 10 ang wini-withhold nila.
Yeah, and I noticed that as well, attorney, in some of the dealings I had with corporation, at 10% talaga.
Okay. Kasi ang dugo ng 5%, ang dami-daming hinihingi sa 5%. So, para hindi problema, 10 na nga lang. Di ba? Kayo naman kasi mababawasan .
That's the reason why pala. Isa na lang na question, attorney, kasi medyo 4 o'clock na, no? May hahabol lang. Yung question daw, if hindi po naka-register on first quarter, pero nakapag-register ng second quarter of the year, hindi po ma-file yung first quarter or paano po ma-file yung first quarter?
Ang first quarter return mo kasi, meron deadline, di ba? Pero pag hindi mo siya na-file sa deadline, pwede mo pa rin naman siya i-file. Late lang siya.
May penalty ba niyan?
May penalty lang for late. Ganun talaga ng BIR . Oo.
Ayun. So hopefully those answered your questions, no? Thank you, attorney, for sharing your knowledge and your Saturday afternoon with us. Thank you also to those who joined us this afternoon. We hope that the information we shared is helpful to the artists who joined, as well as the students. We know that you probably need to review this video, but we will post this video on YouTube and you can watch this again. There are a lot of information that you need on the video, so we will post this on YouTube along with the previous talks that we had. Thank you, attorney. Do you have any last word for the artists watching?
Yeah, I understand how difficult it is. And I tried my best to simplify it. I've tried to make it as simple as possible. And while it poses a very difficult and daunting activity at first, pag inisa-isa mo naman siya, hindi naman siya ganong kahirap. You just need to do the first step. Pag ginawa mo na yung first step, madali na siya. Tsaka, I think the website of the BIR is very helpful. If you go to the website, there are a lot of information. If you take time to go over the information, the information there is quite informative, and it will allow you to go through the process, the painful process of registering. But I think it's very important for the artist to have that yung sense of you're doing your part as a citizen of the Philippines to pay your taxes, as well as it legitimizes also your profession, because all the professionals do that. So I might as well take up that that responsibility. So hindi lang ba siya sa salita lang, sa gawa dapat rin pag nagyabang ka na taxpayer ka, may papakita ka na nagbabayad ka talaga ng tax.
Ayun, thank you. Remember that artists, if you are earning, you should pay your taxes, and that's how we contribute, to the country, because taxes is the lifeblood of the country. So again, if you want to watch the previous talks and this talk, we have a YouTube channel that's Museums Matter on YouTube. You can check all of the videos there, including some of our previous programs as well. So we will see each other again next week. We will discuss another exciting topic with our guest artist, Riel Hilario. Riel will talk about running a niche art space, a very exciting topic. And if you will be visiting Iloilo Business Park soon, Ilumoca partnered with Festive Walk Mall for an art projection exhibition. View the artworks from Ilonggo artists in motion. While you're there, don't forget to take pictures and tag us on social media. To keep yourself updated with everything Ilumoca, follow us on social media. Our Hulot Gallery, by the way, is also open with social distancing measures in place. You can visit us from Tuesday to Saturday. We are open from 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. So we will see each other again next Saturday. Salamat, kag mayong hapon sa liwat.